Right, here are a few of the tests that are used to look at construction and make sure that it's done properly. When you're building a road, you want to get the subgrade, the dirt below the road, compacted properly and make sure that it's strong. You don't want clay in that soil because it'll kind of swell when it's wet and it doesn't really hold load very well. So sometimes you'll take like a heavy truck, like a water truck, and run it slowly across the subgrade and look at it. What you want to see is nice, straight, strong soil like that. What you don't want to see is the soil swelling up under the wheels. That's not good. So that's called proof rolling. So you're looking for good, strong soil that stays stable and doesn't swell under the wheels. Okay, some tests that you run on road fill. Compaction testing. It used to be you'd take a sample and send it to the lab, and it would take a day or two to get the results back, which was kind of a problem because when you're doing construction work, often by the time you get the results back, that stuff's already been buried. Nowadays, they have these nuclear test gauges that you have to be trained and certified to use properly and safely. You could drop a probe into the soil and calibrate this thing, of course, and then run it, and it'll get you the percent compaction. Based on what they consider to be optimum compaction. So a set of specifications often for a job, which is used to govern how the job is done, often includes a percentage of required compaction for soil. And this nuclear tester will get you that information. Okay, when you lay asphalt, it's common to pull cores out of it and to test them at a lab. So you just cut a core out of it and take it to the lab so it can be tested for strength primarily. Soil is analyzed by looking at the grain sizes. So you have a series of screens that start large and work their way down smaller and smaller. So you put the sample of soil on the top screen, which is quite coarse and large, that you put it on a shaking device there that just shakes the heck out of it. And the soil will work its way down until it falls onto the smallest screen that it can. You then weigh the soil in the different sieves there, the different screens. That's just a stack of screens there, working your way from the coarse on the bottom to the fine, coarse on the top to the fine on the bottom. After shaking it, you get all the grains in the soil separated, and you do a grain size analysis of the soil. And that's a very valuable soil analysis technique to see how good your soil is and its characteristics. All right, when you build a road, it's common to drain test the gutters. Simply what you do there, you find a source of water, usually at a fire hydrant. You get a hose out, you just pour water or spray water into the gutter and see where it goes. You want it to go to the low point where your curb inlets and catch basins are. A good thing about this test is water, it doesn't lie. It'll flow where it flows, and that's a good way to see how the gutter will drain before the project is accepted. Okay, you can also test pipelines. Various ways. Some of the old school ways, you put a lamp or a mirror down at one end in a manhole, get in the other manhole and have a look. You're looking for a full circle of light. If there's any sort of, if it isn't a full circle, there's probably some problems with how that line was laid, an offset joint or something like that. Now we'll get into this later, but of course before you climb into a manhole, you want to be sure that it's a safe environment for you to be in. You want to be trained properly and have the proper equipment to do that. Okay, you can also take something, just a wire cage that's the proper inner diameter, run a rope down from one manhole to the next and see if you can pull the cage through the pipe. If the cage hangs up, it's called a mandrel is the name for it. If you can't pull the mandrel through the pipe, again, you've got some sort of problem. The pipe has been squashed by the fill on it, there's an offset joint or something has gone wrong. Okay, you can also do pressure testing on pipes to make sure that they've sealed properly. You can put a seal in either end of the pipe, put a pressure gauge and a pump on there, and see how long it holds pressure. There's usually a specified allowable pressure drop over a given time. And so you check the pressure gauge and be sure that the pressure is holding. You could do a hydrostatic manhole test where you fill a manhole with water and then again see how well it holds water. That's a way to check for the seal on the manhole. Okay, a very common test these days is to run a TV camera down a line and to actually look at it and record the condition of the line with the distance from the manhole you've gone. There's two common types of cameras. One is some are on sleds and are pulled by a rope. Some are on tractors and are little robots and actually move their own way down the line. Typically, while you're doing this, there's a distance counter that shows where you are and how far from the manhole you are. I'll post a video of a little TV inspection just so you can see that here as well. So that would be something just to have a look at, just to see how this appears. You know, it's a very good inspection. You can actually see exactly what's happening in the line. So that's a very, very good way to inspect a pipeline. Okay, there's a camera on a sled. You know, they have wires that connect them back to a computer where you collect the data. They have very powerful lights, and they work their way down the pipeline and let you see what's happening in the pipeline. Okay, so there's a sled-mounted camera. Here's a tractor-mounted camera. You have to work a little bit to get these down in the manhole and then work them from one manhole to the next. You have to be very careful with these, of course, because they're quite valuable. You don't ever want to get one stuck in a pipeline. Okay, water line testing. Typically you install a cork stop, you close two valves, you pump water into the line at a given pressure, and then you're allowed to use a certain amount of water, which is basically what's leaking over a given time period. And the amounts of water depend on the size of the line and how long it is and that sort of thing. But this is a way to test to make sure that the pipe doesn't leak. All right, so those are just some common tests that are done of roads and fill and pipelines.